Wow, I can't believe this is actually the last episode of Married at First Sight. There were some surprises in there for me, a little bit, in terms of how I've left feeling. In terms of TV calamity, there's been so much. So much. A lot of the room really, I think, got emotional. Charlie gets quite emotional. It's funny because a friend of mine said that they worked with Orson. I don't know whether their opinion was that favourable, to be honest, but I just find that ridiculous. Like, who has employed this pantomime villain? She's like, absolutely not. I don't know why he would have said that to me. We've never spoken like that with each other before. And he's like, well, no, not your ball. Like, to Ryan, God, no. So you can't just sit back and say, oh, it's just between you and Holly. That's the first thing. And number two, it wasn't. At the same time, I've never really got past the dinner plate up the wall. And she's like, because he doesn't want me. And I just felt that, man. Well, one, people, thems. Wow, I can't believe this is actually the last episode of Married at First Sight, episode 36. So I'm probably a little bit late to the party because I think everybody would have watched it last night. But I've just watched it now as I've just finished watching, finished editing my reactions to the rest of the week. And this episode, I think this was a really good final episode to kind of wrap up just everything, to genuinely just put a little bow around it all and be like, this is the culmination of the past 10 weeks. And there were some surprises in there for me, a little bit, in terms of how I've left feeling, as opposed to coming in how I was feeling. Some people I definitely have not changed my opinion on, like, at all. But I think in the main, I think this series has just been really, really great. I really, really do. I think there's been so much in terms of TV calamity. There's been so much. This episode is their kind of final, like one final commitment ceremony, I guess. But it's not a commitment ceremony. It's just another opportunity to sit down with the experts and I guess just have that one final opportunity to talk about anything that you need to talk about. And obviously from the reunion dinner party, there was definitely a lot to kind of like unpack and think about. So it starts off with the more kind of filtering through, and they replay the season, like how it all started, and that was quite. I can imagine for the people sat there, emotional. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of those people at that time, you got Polly walking in with the file in her hand, and it transitions into her bridal dress, which transitions then into like all the grooms turning around. Like, if you're someone who, like me, like I love, absolutely love. So if you go into something like this, having, things clearly haven't worked out for you prior, and you come into this being like, wow, not only have I applied, but I've been selected, and they've actually found me someone. You would be like, oh my days, like the stars of. I mean, unless you've watched every single season and you've realised that actually the chances are pretty slim. But like, you would be so like excited of the prospect of what's to come, and I think you saw that, and I think even in like, the situations with even Charlie, for example, and how badly that didn't work out. The ongoing issues with Polly and Adam, Orson, Rochelle, Stephen and Hannah, like all these kind of like really early on detrimental situations that happened. You can still see that on that day, that there was so much hope and joy, and there was so much respect and light for each other, and I think that was nice to see. Actually, it was kind of nice to be reminded in that kind of montagey way, as to how did we get here. Well, a lot of the room really, I think, got emotional. Charlie gets quite emotional, and Paul speaks to her and he's like, I can see that you're feeling emotional there. Like, what, how are you feeling after seeing that? And she's like, a lot happened with me and Eve, and I still live a lot of those same feelings that you can see on the video. And actually, I'm surprising myself that I'm not as over it as I thought I would be. And Paul like reminds them, like, look, there is no cap to your grief, or how you're processing the feelings you've had, because they were real. And I think that's a really good point. Like, sometimes people can, and I've had it myself, and I think I've shared a lot of my own, like, love past doing these reactions and stuff. But I've had it where you've got sometimes, like, really small spaces of time with someone that you get really, really into, and you're really, really upset, and then you might have someone that you've been with for a really, really long time, and then you get over it a lot quicker, like, and all the kind of bits there and thereabouts and in between. So I think he's right. There is no kind of guideline to how you should feel or where you should move on, because those things were real for people. To be fair, the majority of us as well don't always have like all that pomp and ceremony in terms of like having all the cameras to have recorded all those intimate moments, but you've got like so much of it, the good and the bad, to look back on. Do you know what I mean? So it's got to be difficult to kind of again navigate that, and to navigate that publicly when people like myself and everyone else has got an opinion. Do you know what I mean? So it then also goes to Orson, because Rochelle isn't here, and he's asked, how does he feel? And he's like, look, it's a shame it didn't work out as I wanted it to go. And it's a shame that Michelle's not here, because it would have been, I was actually looking forward to seeing her, but, I wish her well. And I think that's kind of gracious as well. It's funny because a friend of mine said that they worked with Orson. I don't know whether their opinion was that favourable, to be honest, but, from what I've seen of him, like in the main, whilst I think there's not always no smoke without fire. Do you know what I mean? So I do kind of feel as though there were things that he probably would have been, that he added to in terms of the breakdown of that relationship with Rochelle. I don't just think she's just the Wicked Witch of the West. Do you know what I mean? But I also do think that there's some major elements of her character that I definitely couldn't abide with or want to be left alone on holiday with. So at least he was able to, regardless of what happened with them and whichever side that people sit on, at least he was able to be gentlemanly in that moment. Do you know what I mean? So that was quite cool. They also mentioned about the fact that he had a spark with Hannah, and he speaks on that. He's like, yeah, we did date, went on a date anyway, and there wasn't enough there for us to kind of continue with anything, which I think is fair enough. Hannah also says, look, Orson was good to me, the way he treated me, the way he spoke to me, he's someone that I've got a lot of time for, and yet, we did. It wasn't like we just decided we were gonna kiss. Like, do you know what I mean? It was built on, actually, is there something here? And I'm not really angry about that. I know that like previous series and stuff, I've been a bit like, what is this? Why is everyone just swapping around people and suddenly it's become Coronation Street? Like, why are people doing that? But I suppose, when you take a step back from it all, I think there have been other seasons where people have done it the wrong way, particularly the Australian one, where they're texting each other and meeting up on secret dates and stuff, and they haven't even told their current person that they've been matched with that actually, I'm not feeling this anymore. And I don't think that was the case with Hannah and Orson. It was quite clear that Stephen wanted nothing to do, when he wasn't even there today, wanted nothing to do with Hannah. And I can understand why he probably didn't. In fact, I'll come back on to him in a minute, actually. But, well, she's come to the conclusion that there's nothing happening with her and Stephen, because there is nothing there. Rochelle hates Orson. So, again, there is nothing there for either party. So, I think in that instance, I wasn't so mad about it, to be honest. Anyway, so the first couple that have come up on the couch is Luke and Amy, and they both look really nice. They don't show their journey. They start with final vows. They show how she deployed her message, and it starts with Luke first and being like, Amy, I want us to stay together, like, all the stuff I said yesterday. And obviously her kind of, it's done, it's dead, it's deceased, R.I.P. And like everyone in the room can kind of feel like how savage it is. Like, I'm sure Polly's just like, that was absolutely savage. And Paul's asking Amy, like, how does it feel watching that back? And she's like, it does feel a bit savage, to be honest. It does really feel a bit harsh. She's like, I felt like there was so much pent up, like, anger and I guess resentment, I suppose. I think I just had enough. And, with all the lies and everything else, I feel like I had to let it out almost. But like watching that back, I do feel bad that it came out in the way that it did. And I think that's the thing for me, that I'm like, well, at the time of watching it, I was like, I just find that ridiculous. Like, who has employed this pantomime villain? Who's employed her? Where did she come from? What contract are we on? And when are we going to see you in the West End? Because that, to me, like the deadpan face, the outfit, the everything, like, it was just giving like Ursula of the Valleys. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it didn't seem to me that it felt fair, because even if someone likes you, sorry, even if it's something that worked out, and even if they've lied to you, do you know what I mean? Like, I think when you find out the reason as to why, like, I still don't agree with it, and I don't think there's any room for lying, but it's not like, someone's been like, there's been infidelity or there's been disrespect. The only thing I will say actually when the disrespect thing is, if you repeatedly tell someone something that you don't like something and they don't change the behavior, then that means that they don't respect you. So it might not be a disrespect in terms of I'm aggressive or I'm being rude to you, or I've slapped your mum in the face. I mean, it might not be disrespectful in that regard, but if you're not respecting a boundary of mine that I've laid out, then actually that is disrespectful. When they're asking Luke about how he feels about it, he's like, I just felt really sad, obviously, because I felt sad that I'd made her feel that way, and he was just talking really positively, like, I'm really, again, still not hopeful, but just feeling really sad about the fact, because they did make it to the happy and stuff, and then Paul's like, Amy, you're looking irritated. Are you okay? And she's just like, it's just, I don't know where that came from. I don't know where, because they're talking about the letter and stuff and how, like, he sent her the brooch and the letter, and she's like, I just don't know where that came from, because we just weren't on the same page with that. Like, it was so closed and so done that I don't know where any of that came from. But because, like, you hoping there could be something, that could come on the back of it. And it's like, well, obviously, like, I really cared about Amy, and of course I'd be hopeful for something. And then she's like, and I don't understand as well that you sent me this letter with this rude bit at the end. And then she's like, and then she says exactly what he said, which again was, no regrets, keep slaying. Obviously, I do have one regret, actually, that when you were in the kitchen cooking, that I regret not getting down on my knees and terrorizing your butthole. Which again, because obviously the other guys probably haven't heard all of this together at the same time, so the reactions around the room, like, they're just like, I cannot believe that he said that. And then, like, Paul's like, so Luke, like, what in fact, before Paul gets involved, Charlene's like, so is this, what did you mean by terrorizing her butthole? Like, why did you choose that term? Why do that's something you talk about? And obviously they're all laughing because obviously Charlene saying the same words is a bit like, where are we right now? Like, is this really what we're talking about? And she's just like, I don't know why he said that to me. She's like, oh, is that something you've done before? And he's like, and he's looking at her. He's like, well, and she's like, absolutely not. I don't know why he would have said that to me. We've never spoken like that with each other before. And he's like, well, no, not your bumhole. Sorry, sorry. Because it's oh man, the poor woman was just like, I don't know why you're saying this, and furthermore, can we just, that has never happened with anyone, never mind Luke, can we just make that very clear? And actually, I don't want to talk about this anymore. So I felt kind of bad for her that suddenly now she's having to have this conversation, and obviously and him making that differentiation between, well, maybe not the bumhole, but and then Polly was like, why do you even choose the word terrorize? Like, what? So Paul's trying to get to the bottom of it, and he's like, look, have you used that term with her before? And he's like, no. Have you used that term with anyone before? Well, not really. Do you think it's shocking? Yeah. So do you think then that sending her a written letter with that in it was gonna be appropriate? And he's like, it's just a word, man. It's just a word. Like, what's so now I've got to, like, think about the words that I say before I say them. And I think I kind of, once they finished the segment and, like, Charlene acknowledged how sad he was about the fact that it wasn't moving forward, you could see where the frustration was coming from, because he was like, I'm just sorry then. I'm sorry that I wanted you so much. I'm sorry I was so attracted to you. And I'm sorry that I'm a sexual person. I'm sorry. Do you know what I mean? He's like, but, at the end of the day, I'm quirky, like, and, I want someone that's going to accept me for me. And, I'm not going to be a conformist. I'm not going to just try and conform. And I think, like Charlene said, there's a lot of power in that. Because I think there's, in the world of social media and stuff, it becomes really easy to just be a sheep and do. I mean, even me having a channel, my kind of walk in life and stuff, and my age and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of mad to think that I'm gonna, do this full time and have no idea if it's gonna work out or not. When, like, all my friends are, like, talking about their third house and their 6 kids. Do you know what I mean? So it's I completely appreciate like the not being like a conformist. I get that, but you also have to take accountability that like well, it depends. You only need to take accountability if you care about the result. Like you're saying on one hand that you really care about this woman, right? And that you really want something to work with her, right? Now, your nature is that you're quite a sexual person, right? So if she says to you, I don't feel comfortable with what you've said there, and you still feel that you've got this urge to kind of like release this thing, then you need to find a way in which that you can still express yourself that she is comfortable with. It doesn't mean that it's going to take anything away from you or that you suddenly have to hide yourself. Because fundamentally, if your level is here and she can never match that ever, then maybe you're just not compatible in that kind of way. And actually, maybe the healthiest thing is that really you didn't proceed because maybe it might lead to you being might lead to infidelity and and stepping out on the marriage and stuff. So those, I guess, when you're not getting your itch scratched, you go and find it somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? And you don't want that. Do you know what I mean? I think it's definitely a conversation that needs to be had, but you can't just be springing that on people, particularly when they've, not to be harsh, have dumped it, ended it, and incinerated the marriage. It's just a very odd position to be in. So I was a bit like, okay. So anyway, that's done. Oh, another point to mention as well. When the video finished initially, Holly was really upset, and they were like, what you think, what you feeling, and she was like, it's just seeing me and Alex actually happy. Like, it was such a like this actually got me just seeing that we actually were happy, and I suppose for them as well, because she didn't get to have a sit down on the couch, because obviously Alex wasn't there either. But I suppose for her as well, she came into this like everybody else wanting a husband, and unfortunately that didn't work out. Then you've got, I think, Nathan and Lacey up next, and they're all their color coordination and couple goals, yeah, is it's 10-10. It is 10-10. He looks cool in his blue t-shirt. She's got this cool little blue outfit on, and they're just happy. She's just like, I didn't expect it to be this good. She's like, but everything I'm asking for, I'm getting it. Like, he loves me. He tells me, you know, and he's also just really happy. And the fact that they're able to kind of be vulnerable with each other, I think that's the thing that they both spoke about. And he's like, on the outside world, like having to talk about my insecurities, the things I'm not good at, would probably send me 100 miles in the other direction. But actually, like, this is amazing. And that they're still silly with each other. And she acknowledges actually that one of the things that she got from her previous relationships was like being love bombed, and the fact that he wasn't doing that, I think, because that's normal to not love bomb people. She actually apologized for like wanting everything there and then, when actually she didn't need to have that. Like it grew naturally, and look where they are now. When they were pressed to see that, well, is there any issues at all, and they did mention about Nathan sometimes not choosing the right words, and therefore things coming out he didn't even mean to say, because that's not the word he actually meant. And her having to block him and stuff, and archiving all this. Like, we've all been there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm blocking you. Like, don't talk to me. We've all been there. I think they kind of, the experts kind of supported that as well. So we're like, it's just one of them things. But they seem good, man. The little Nathan Juniors are definitely not imminent, but they're really, really happy. I want to say Emma and Casper. So they've come in again quite jolly and jovial, and it was really nice to, if you've been watching this from the beginning, to see the journey that they've been on, and the amount of hurt that they've caused each other, but primarily that he's caused her. For them to kind of just have this really like light spirited connection, and nice to each other. So I think that's the thing that's always baffled me, that like, unless you've been like utterly ghastly, which I think some of them have been to each other, I don't see any reason as to why we can't just be civil and get on. And if we, and ultimately, like, we've had this experience, but we're cool, And I think it's just been nice to see that they could do that. They're both kind of wishing each other well. He even said, look, we both came into this to find love. Emma deserved to have someone, the kind of husband that she's looking for, and for me, that and I wasn't that for her, and that's on me. And I think that's him kind of acknowledging some of the things that he'd probably said and done, and kind of put her through, and that they've both got a lot of love to give. They've both learned a lot. He's learned a lot, and he's trying even more now. Well, he knows exactly what he doesn't want, but he knows what he does want. And she's kind of saying the same thing. That Mr. February, her man of the, because they've both dated. Well, she said she hasn't dated any man of the month. He has dated, and she's like, I need someone that's gonna make me laugh. I need someone that's gonna put me in my place as well. I need someone fit. And he's like, thanks. And she's like, no, 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 no. I'm like, you know what you did there. But it's nice to know that, like, from the experiment, because obviously as a viewer, we can watch these things and be like, that doesn't even make sense when you put that person with that person, like what you do. Da, da, da. But it's good to see that even when people don't work, they learn a lot. They genuinely, clearly learn a lot about themselves. Well, I saw them say. So they're all happy. They're talking about being invited to each other's weddings and stuff when they happen. And yeah, it's nice. They've got a friendship there. Their own beautiful experience that they will never be able to change, and that they're happy about that. So that's really cool. Then I think you've got Ryan and Shannon. Now this one was the most interesting one for me because obviously there's been a lot of cloak and dagger regarding these two as to what went down, what happened, and yeah. So it looks like, right, that Shannon decided that she was going to leave the experiment because she spotted some red flags. She said that she hadn't been honest with the experts about things that she'd noticed and things that she'd seen because she just really wanted it to work. But then, there were comments about her weight. There were comments about, lots of little digs at her to kind of undermine her confidence. But then, like, the fact that this was just a holiday romance, really, for him. It was never real. And that the straw that brought the camel's back was the fact that they'd argued about these damn shoelaces. I mean, we must have all heard about these shoelaces already, and argued about these shoelaces, and she was just like, I don't need to put up with this. And usually I'd be the person that would stick around, but I've told myself I'm not doing that anymore. And I'm so glad that we were able to kind of have the conversation with them both there, because again, as a viewer, as a third party to any of this, it's like, well, where does this actually land? And before, you had her talking to the girls, him talking to the boys. So it's like, well, we don't really, there's no crossover of information here. There's no cross examination. So he was very much like that thing there about the holiday thing was a joke. There was always a joke. It was never any more than that. The whole argument about the shoelaces thing was just ridiculous. It's like, yes, there were comments about her weight, and she's like, but that was because she was on antibiotics. I didn't think she was eating properly, so I was just conscious about her health. Like, as a former cancer survivor, like, health is really important to me. It's like, so if it's ever come across as anything other than me caring about you, I'm really, really sorry. So that wasn't my intention. But she didn't seem to buy that really. But I don't know whether the people in the room really bought her perspective either. He was like, you've tried to paint me out to be this really bad person, and I think, if I'm honest, that's exactly what it sounded like. I'm not gonna lie. That kind of an abrupt leaving with not even a sit down on the couch or anything like that, to me was like something aggressive happened. Like, he's done something aggressive here. And even when she was talking about these kind of red flags and this kind of like behind closed doors, he's a different person, it gave like personality disorder. It was giving asbo. It was giving it was all these different connotations was like running around my head. And if I'm honest, I don't think look, none of us are those two, like, and none of us are the cast. So they might be privy to more information than we're privy to. I just, based on what we've seen here, I don't know whether the vilification of him was justified, if I'm honest, because I think I was expecting to hear something far graver. Like, I feel as though that you've reacted to things where, she's like, it's not banter, it's not funny. And I'm like, but another person's banter or funny can be another person's offence, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this person is a bad person. And I feel like, every juncture that he's been brought up, even at the reunion yesterday when people are like, oh, have you spoken to Ryan? God, no. God, no. And it's like, you wouldn't bring yourself to speak to him. But I'm like, well, it doesn't seem that what he's done is, I don't know, it just didn't seem that bad. Then they were talking about like how she was like, oh, he tried to keep me under the thumb, And he was like, I've never stopped you talking to anybody ever, whereas you have, I've made out that I can't speak to certain people. And she's like, I've never stopped you speaking to any of the girls. And he's like, people know here that you've made it quite clear that I can't talk to Hannah. And she was like, yeah, because you've been flirting with Hannah, like, and when you told me when she was like rubbing your foot and stuff, and she's like, no, that is Hannah. She's like, I've never flirted with her, and Hannah's like, just for the record, he's never flirted with me, just to be clear. So I'm like, okay, cool. Then they're like, look, is there anything further that you would like to say to Shannon? And he's like, absolutely nothing. So pretty much the same soundbite from yesterday. Absolutely nothing. And they ask her the same question, and she's like, yeah, I'll thank him for, helping me be more confident, to speak my mind, to know what I don't want. And there's something else she thanked him for as well. But that was kind of it, really. But he did say though from the beginning that he's not over it. He's not over the hurt. He doesn't even know whether he will ever get over the hurt of it all. And I think that's quite, again, telling, because even though he's not expressing himself in, say, the same way that Christina does, or any of the other people are talking in this show, like, it's quite clear that he still has feelings. And yeah, I again, I don't know, and God forgive me if I'm incorrect, but I feel as though he's been done dirty. I feel like the perception of him has been done dirty, and I don't think, whilst it might be real to her and how she feels, I'm not invalidating that because those are her feelings. I was expecting to hear something far more grave about what he'd done to abruptly walk out of that experiment, and I don't think I heard that. So that's just my opinion. I think then, actually, after those two, I think there's then a conversation that they have with Hannah, and they're talking about like her wedding and the fact that Stephen's not there, and they're like, are you surprised he's not here? Well, she goes, it's not. Are you surprised? And they're like, well, are you surprised he's not here? And she's like, no. She's like, not at all. She's like, it's quite clear that, again, we had an amazing connection on the wedding day. It's like, but after that, after the first hurdle, he just CBA, checked out. And I felt as though that it didn't matter what I did, like, he was just never interested again and just never came back around. They were very keen to say, look, he's not here to defend himself, and so let's try and move on away from that. But I do think, and again, look, there could be a variety of reasons why he wasn't there. Maybe he was ill, maybe there's something with his family, who knows. But I think, given how, if I was him, after watching the reunion, I'd have been like, there is absolutely no value for me to go back. Because, people, would have started watching some of the show, I would have imagined, like, and maybe, it's become a bit more apparent about my actions and intentions and stuff, and actually I can't really lie my way out of those. I have nothing to gain from Hannah because it's done and I'm over it. I was over it from I flew back and landed back in the UK from the honeymoon. And the one girl that maybe I did want to kind of talk to, they did off my conversation. So for me to go and sit in an environment where I have to look back, like, and I have to face certain things that I've said, certain things that I've done, I'm not prepared to do that. And like I said, if he wasn't able to make it, then I stand corrected. But I feel like, given just some of the backdoorness that he's tried to do and then the squirming at some of these situations, I am not surprised at all that having to sit here, having to sit there and face Hannah and face the experts and stuff, that just didn't seem like an appeal. It's done now. My face has been out there. My edit probably hasn't been great. But like I said, it could be something completely different, and who's to say? So, but that was just my initial thought of that. They then did speak on her like fractious relationship with the rest of the group and stuff, and how there was some issues there, and they asked her to kind of speak on that, and she was like, I feel as though I was very much misunderstood very early on, and people made judgments of me, and maybe my banter isn't this or that, and there were some things I did do wrong, but I feel as though that, like, in this group in particular, there was like a pack mentality that just came for me, and I've never had. She actually said that some of those girls' nights, were some of the hardest that she's ever had to face. And the fact that people have come for her, like, and said things to her that she doesn't feel any woman should really say to another woman, really. And Harley's just like, I can't sit here, while you're playing victim. Right, I can't do that. The reason that you got the reactions that you got is based on your behavior, and you're not taking accountability of your actions, right? That's the reason why I was how I was with you. Because, like, you know, when Hannah was saying the things that were said to her about, look what the cat dragged in, and she's like, yeah, I did say that. I did. And I think when I said earlier about like how certain opinions haven't changed, for me, again, Holly's, I'm like, I don't know what planet she's on. Like, I really don't. Because I would have thought, bearing in mind that like it wasn't just Holly that took issue and umbrage with Hannah. There was Polly, Lacey also had some things to say at some point or another. It was mainly those three really, and I found it very interesting that they didn't speak, that they didn't hold any court this time. It was just Holly. So on the one hand, I will respect Holly for owning what she said, but owning what you said and taking accountability for what you've said and the repercussions of that, I just think that was completely non-existent, like at all. Like, it's one thing to say, yeah, I said it, and I said it because of the way that you've acted and stuff, and it was like Hannah was like, you practically bullied and victimized me. Like, you know, and realistically, based on what? She's like, you know, it was the fact that she's pecked and pecked and pecked and pecked at me. And I'm like, I'll be watching a different show here. I'll be watching a different show. Because the only person that was able to peck was the head hen in the chicken roost, and that was you. And that's because you had your people around you backing you up. And like, it was literally like watching like ABC on bullying. That's how I see it anyway. I'm not saying that Hannah didn't do things that probably, you know, put her in a different in a negative limelight. Like, I'm sure I've seen an article whilst I was doing this that says that she's confirmed a romance. Now, I don't know who that romance is with, but I'm gonna go for broke and presume it's Ryan. Which then says, okay, was it then always platonic then? Do you know what I mean? Like, I've been backing her, and I listen, I will eat my humble pie if it's not. Do you know what I mean? Like, if she genuinely has gone around and, you know, and trying to get people to like dip their fountain pen in her ink, then yo, that ain't great. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I won't back that. Do you know what I mean? But we don't know that. We don't know the ins and outs. If that's the case, we don't know. Either way, in that moment, yeah, I've heard being friends with just a human being that happens to have testicles and a penis, that doesn't necessarily mean that gives you the right to turn around and call her, you know, all the different words that she called her and stuff. Like, I just think that. And anyway, then she goes into the fact that she walked into this dinner party yesterday with this thing about her daughter on her mind and stuff, and she's like, look, at the end of the day, you can say whatever you want about me. She's just like, you know, shoot your shots, yeah, that bounce off me, but you come for my kids, yeah, and I'm coming to war. And I lost it. She said something about F off or whatever, and I lost it, and I made it very clear. And again, like, I don't feel as though that is because and Charlene didn't either, clearly, because she's like, you know, it was a shame to see that where this conversation went, because it did get quite aggressive, to be honest, and quite intimidating. And she's like, you know, she's like, yeah, I take accountability. And it was like, even her saying the word, I was like, I don't believe that you are taking accountability, because at no point did you go, I am sorry that my outburst or my reaction was what it was. I'm sorry, based on what Charlene just said, that like that may have come across as aggressive. I'm sorry if at any point, but because it's a bit like, and I'll get to Polly and Adam in a minute, but when Polly was talking about what she'd done wrong, she was quite able to articulate where she had gone wrong. Whereas Holly was just like, well, it's fair game in it, because you've come in and you've done that, so I reacted to you. And it's like, yeah, but you're not seeing then like what your part to play has been, because there's been many times, and even when Hannah said, I've walked into the room, yeah, because I think Sasha tried to pipe up and say, oh, you know, it's not the whole group against you, yeah, it's just you and Holly thrashing it out and us leaving you to it. Well, there's two things with that, and Paul said it earlier on. He's like, when there is conflict, yeah, it's every person that's in that room right at that point, yeah, has a responsibility as to whether they help to diffuse it or they contribute to it. You deciding not to do anything, yeah, is gonna contribute to it. So you can't just sit back and say, oh, it's just between you and Holly. That's the first thing. And number two, it wasn't. Do you know what I mean? Like, at no point, the only time that I saw someone come outside and, and check if Hannah was okay was Emma and Amy, and that was at the retreat. Like, at no point did I see Sasha. Like, I think Sasha did. Um, Sorry, no. Sasha did come round to she did come round. Sorry, I take that back. Sasha did come round to their little hut thing, their little cottage, and that's when she told them about the foot thing, because she just thought it was just the Orson situation, but there was a whole foot thing as well. So she did come round at that point, and she did seem like she was kind of supportive there, but I didn't really see any further support for Hannah after that at all from Sasha. Or from anyone else, really. And it's really easy to say that, like, it's just Holly, because she's like, when she said that to you, right, you want a table on your own. That table on their own wasn't in, like, Bulgaria. Do you know what I mean? It was right next to you. So after that, did you say to her, look, I'm so sorry that you got called that, or I'm so sorry that you've been made to feel on your own? Like, I just think it's really easy to kind of just say it's just Holly, and try and say that there isn't any responsibility from the rest of the group. You know, if you can sit down there and advocate for how Holly feels, you can tell how much I feel about this particular issue. Because I just don't like bullies, and I don't like the fact that someone has been made to feel like so ostracized. And realistically, the crime that they've committed isn't even that deep. From what we've seen on here, it isn't that deep. It just isn't. You can, okay, Holly's feelings and how she feels about Hannah, but then when she's saying that that's how she felt walking into a room full of people, no one's prepared to acknowledge that, and apologize to her for that. I was just like, wow, man. And then she's got the gall to be like, oh, I hope one day me and because they're like, oh, Hannah, have you got anything else to say to Holly? And she's like, no. Because she's like, there's no point. She's like, I'm talking to a brick wall. There's no point. And then when they ask Hannah, Holly, she's like, yeah, hopefully one day me and Hannah can, get to the point where we see each other and we can be civil and we don't want to, like, rip each other's heads off. And it's like, it's just a jovial, like, I got you, girl. And it's like, mate, what I can't, this is what I'm saying, what planet are you on? What planet are you on? I just don't understand that. So, yeah, so that's that done. I think Polly and Adam were actually before these guys, but anyway, Polly and Adam are up next, and this was like another one for me, which I think ended better than where I thought it was going to end, because I was like, this guy cannot be for real. So the show, like, their journey, so they're not just from the wedding, like, but they show the whole thing, and like they show, like, what how Adam's been and what he said about Polly to Alfie, how they've been in terms of intimacy, and and how how he didn't regret it, but he was thinking maybe I shouldn't have done that. How she thought that he wasn't very romantic, and how he did things, the whole petal thing, and did the dinner thing in the yard. Now, even that, by the way, I was giving props for that, but that's one time in their apartment. It'd be interesting to know if there was anything else that he ever did that was romantic. So yeah, they do the whole kind of journey thing, and I think there are some real like clangers in there of just certain things that he said, about, I want to go for someone who looks unreal. The fact that he's like, I shouldn't have probably slept with her. And they do the whole thing about her wanting to switch as well, to switch to Stephen, and how, he's really upset about that. Then they show the argument at the final dinner party, before the reunion one, and, him talking about the fact that we've slept together 3 times. And he's like, we weren't saying that for the first 3 weeks. And then, how you were begging it, like, who's going to want to come and sleep with you when you've been moaning at me all day? I'm not going to want to do that. Then the ultimate, like, her dashing the wine and telling him with a C-bomb. And so they do the whole journey. And he's like, I ain't done nothing wrong. She's just like, I feel as though that, watching that back, there's a lot of the time that, like, he did lead me on. Now, they're quizzing him because they're like, well, the intimacy seems to be what has kind of thrown things out in terms of, like, whether you led her on or not. And they're like, do you think you led her on? And he's like, no. He's like, do you think that, like, you sleeping with her was you just wanting to dive, you weren't attracted to your wife, but you seem to be that you were committed to the experiment, so is that why you slept with her? And he's like, I don't regret it. He's like, but, yeah, I wanted to see if there was something that we can build on. Whereas I think Paul saying, I think for Polly, she sees that as more of a, oh, we were in a relationship, so we're now sleeping together. So maybe that's the disconnect and stuff. But he was like, I just want to understand. He's like, you guys seem to be like the best of friends and like had a really close friendship at one point. And he asks everyone else, and they're all corroborating that, saying, you had one of the best friendships ever. Your relationship start off having a great friendship. So he's like, at what point then does it become about the friendship or the ego? Which one's more important? Because Adam genuinely cannot see anything that he's done wrong, and she's like, but like, I don't get how, like, even now you're not taking any accountability for what you've done in this situation, like none. And she's like, I can, and Paul's like, Polly, can you see what you've done here? And she's like, yes. She's like, and she articulates it. She's like, speaking to him the way that I did, speaking to him in group chats and group settings and stuff when I was quite irate. Some of the things that she said that she'd done, she's like, I can definitely hold my hand up and say that I've not been perfect at all, and it's taught me a lot about what I need to do moving forward. But the fact that he's like, I don't think I've done anything wrong. I mean, eventually it does get to the point where they do apologise, and Paul's like, I think you've got something you want to say to each other if the friendship is more important. And Polly's like, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry that we've got to this point. I never wanted to, and I just want us to be civil, And then he makes a bit of a joke, being like, how sorry are you? But then he does actually apologise, like, I'm sorry, and for any of the things I've said and I've done that have hurt you, I'm sorry. But I'm just like, why did it take this? Like, why did it take for you? Like, because I'm still probably of the impression that he doesn't think that he's really done anything wrong. And I'm like, how can you watch that back and not feel like you've done anything wrong? Because he was like, even if you don't think you've done anything wrong, do you think you've been kind to Polly? And he's like, well, yeah, like, there's been times she told me that, I've treated her like a princess, and stuff, through all my acts of service. And it's like, okay, but you deciding to run a bath for someone doesn't mean that actually when we get in front of someone else that you're going to turn around and say that basically I'm a beg for something that, like, I don't want and you're never going to get. Like, that doesn't cancel that out. And they did ask him about the whole narcissist thing as to why, why do you feel as though that, why was that so important to you and why did it hurt you so much? And he's like, because I associate that with like a general nasty piece of work. And he's like, I don't think I am. Now, I did say that I disagreed with the experts, with all of my relationship experts, PhD qualifications. I was like, no, I don't agree. I think he's got tendencies. But Paul said, look, I went back on his file, and just to be very clear, he is not a narcissist. And, so I will stand down on that and say, look, he's going to know more than me. He's looked at his, his personality algorithms, all that kind of stuff, and I haven't. But it's just, when you look at something like this from a third party perspective, and to me, there does seem to be a lot of, he's trying to say that it's all about Polly, but to me, it seems like it's a lot about him. That's what it seems like to me. And then the kind of the gaslighting part, to me, I'm not, what is that not? But as I said, look, fair enough. Paul has spoken, and I will take his account on that. So they do leave us friends and stuff, which I never thought that, after everything that happened on the last couple of days, I would never have thought that. Oh, Sasha and Ross are really good. They show their kind of journey from the wedding all the way through to them having where she wanted to leave and stuff, and I think it's really interesting. They talk a lot about their emotional regulation and how when they're arguing and stuff that, like, they've got better with him just bolting back to Manchester, but also that he'll be like, I need 5 minutes, and then she was like, I feel as though that he's just taking control then. Because it's not like a measured, let's both of us take some time to think about what we want to do and what we want to say. I just need to, I'm just taking control of this, which then makes her feel that she doesn't have any control and it's kind of on his terms. And I can imagine what that's like, because again, being in a situation where, like, I'm definitely a talker and I would want to resolve situations there and then. I have been in situations with people where they're not those kind of people, and then when they storm off or they go somewhere, it's like, well, I'm left feeling like this thing is unresolved. You're feeling like you can't take any more of my talking, so it is like this thing. But I think what Mel said, which I think is a really good idea, is that rather than it being that you're just gonna close your eyes and close your ears and not listen or storm off, that actually like a decision that's reached together, like whether it's not 5 minutes but more like 30 minutes, it's a healthy way to say, well, we're both going to take our time. Like that would make me feel like, well, at least I know that we're definitely coming back together, and we're not going to have this limbo bad feeling hanging over us tonight, tomorrow, so that appeases me. You still get your time to kind of calm down and have your time to you, because then that appeases you too. So I think that's a really, really good idea. But they're good. The unit's good. She said exactly what I thought about them living in Warsaw for a while, being good, and then moving on up to Manchester. Now, again, I've tried to like not watch or see any articles or anything, but I did listen to my friend's voice note in the end. Well, some of it anyway. And he said that Sasha and Ross are no longer together. Which I don't know whether I'm surprised by or not. To be honest, I think after just watching that commitment ceremony there, final one, I am a little bit surprised because it seemed they were going the right way. But then at the same time, I've never really got past the dinner plate up the wall, to be honest, guys. So as much as everyone's like doing up fairy tales and whatever else, I'm like, yeah, but the bolognese is still dripping down the wall. So, but I'm sad to hear it because there did seem as though there was a lot of love there. So, I think I will do another reaction at some point with like the most recent news about who's together and whatnot. So I'll probably come back to that another time. So the last one, really, before this turns into another hour, is Kieran and Christina. There isn't anyone else, is there? There's anyone else. Kieran and Christina. And this one is another one that kind of changed my opinion. I was probably quite cynical of Kieran prior to this because I didn't understand the reason as to why they weren't together. I kind of felt as though that there was every reason under the sun. And I don't know whether there is still an element that we don't know. I don't know. But you can only take it on face value of what he said. So they share their journey from the wedding right through to honeymoon, right through to when they hit the rocks, right through to when he started withdrawing, right through to them both deciding to leave. And I think everybody, like I was sat down there, like my TV's over here, and I was just sat down there just like, I was so sad. I was so sad because I think a lot of people can relate to both situations. Do you know what I mean? Like I've been in that situation where everything on paper should mean that like we are perfect. Do you know what I mean? But there is just something that isn't connecting for me, and I wish it was. But I've also been in the situation where I've been the person that someone just cannot connect with, and it's like it is a really heartbreaking thing. It is a heartbreaking thing on both parts. But I think what we got from this is that you don't shed them kind of tears if you're not a genuine person. And I really liked Kieran when I first met him. But then I started to go off him when I started to be like, well, I don't think you're being very honest here. And I think when Paul kind of really drilled down to why is it that you're not together? And he was like, I just don't think that I have the capacity basically to give Christina what she needs. Like she relies so much on a partner, and I just don't. And I don't. And I guess what he was saying was because he's been in situations before where he's had to do that. Like he's built in the way that he doesn't need to rely on someone so much, and then having someone that has to rely on him so much when you've got your own stuff to deal with. And he's like, sometimes I don't even know if I can show up for myself, never mind for someone else. And I think, well, there's two things with that. I think it's really good to be honest about it, but I think if you meet the person that you think is the love of your life, yeah, I don't. I think you would want to show up for them. I think he's weighed it up to be like, as much as like I like this person, like with all of that, is that something that I want to take on? And he's obviously decided it's just not. And once that's done, and his head's off it, it's off it because and I suppose then seeing her at the reunion and her being upset and then again requiring him to provide some kind of support and that kind of stuff, it's like, this is exactly what I mean. I don't have the capacity in which to do that. And as your friend, amazing, but as your husband for life, and I think there's a lot of us that can relate to that. And I love Christine. I think she's a lovely person. But I suppose anyone, I remember being in this one situation, and we weren't in a relationship, we weren't really dating, but I just remember kind of like, you know, like they'd say we were intimate. But it kind of felt like it got to the point where I was like, oh, actually, I don't think this is right, really, and I don't think long term this is something that I kind of want to move forward with. Like, but I do still want to be your friend though, and that transition from being like how we were to being friends, I found like really difficult because I'd still have the inundation of messages and stuff, and I was like, well, we're not at like, we can still be cool, but like part of the reason of us not taking anything further forward is that like I don't have that space to have that with you, like with anyone actually right now. And they didn't take it very well at all. And again, when you look back on it, like a lot of that is to do with just how you feel and how your emotions are. That's how I feel. It's how I feel. By the way, that with the enough now. There's a guy on Instagram called Antonio. There's a character called Janet. I just think she's so funny. It's just so ridiculous, so ridiculous. And I've seen so many of them now that it's just become intertwined in my vocabulary. So it's how I feel. It's how I feel. Anyway, so yeah, they leave on a really good note. And again, I've got a lot more respect for Kieran than I think it dwindled over the last few weeks. I think, and I kind of, oh. But he does really care about her. He's gonna go on this festival because she's like, you know, I've got 2 tickets because I thought I was walking out here with a husband. But you know, would you want to come? And he was like, I've never been to a festival. I'd love to come. And you know, the grin on her face. You know, like, because all the things she's talking about, you know, the fact that she can't speak to him often and all that kind of stuff, those are all the things that happen when you break up with someone. Do you know what I mean? And it's that transition that can become really difficult. So we've all been there. You know, when she was like, you know, when Paul initially asked, you know, so why aren't you together? And she's like, because he doesn't want me. And I just felt that, man. Because again, I'm sure we've all had that at some point in our lives, and it's just like, oh, why don't you want me? So yeah, man, it was really, really, really good. I thought that the experts were really, really respectful, and I think it's times like that when they're on the couch when I really see the expertise of the experts and stuff. And you know, I think each of them, Charlene, Mel, and Paul's my guy. I want his card again. I feel like they do bring something actually, and even though I might have been quite critical at first about why have you put these people together, you know, they've managed to pick people that have engaged me this whole time for better or for worse. And I think as a talking point of a show that deals with like love, romance, relationships, what people need, growth and whatever, it's been really interesting for me just to watch this and to see all these different scenarios and have an opinion, and then share that with everyone else. So yeah, man, I have thoroughly enjoyed reacting to this. I don't know whether I'm going to react to any more of them, because it is such an undertaking when, you know, my channel is all about lots of other things. But I definitely will be keeping my ear to the ground about any like further seasons and like any other news that comes off this particular season. I hope that all of my comments have been fair, like, you know, the fact that it is my opinion. And, you know, as much as like I'd probably say the villains of the season for me were like Holly and Steven or whatever. I still don't wish them any kind of ill will. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm sure that they will continue to grow and blossom on the back of this. And I hope for the people that, you know, have actually stuck together and got married and whatever, I genuinely do wish them all the best. And like now, because we've seen it in the public domain, you know, we have a public interest in hopefully seeing it flourish, but not in like a weird crazy way where you start like, you know, DMing them being like, I can't believe you broke her heart. Like, mate, it's not that deep. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, but thank you if you did watch this with me and on all of my long soliloquies and whatever. Like, thank you so much for like watching, sharing your opinion, and hopefully you'll continue to watch my reactions and other things as well. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one. And you'll notice that I wasn't wearing black today. Sorry, Amy.